Righty. Well, I always want to say either good morning or good afternoon or good evening, but I have no idea when people will be watching this. So I'll just say hello from Cordova, Tennessee, just outside of Memphis. Today is Sunday, July 13. I've been getting a bunch of people asking about space planning and help with putting together their VT rooms. And I thought I'd take a little time, give you something to watch, and then have that simply be something that you can start with. And then we can go back and forth, if you will, in the consultation on this thing. So, one of the questions I usually ask, or these are some of the questions I usually ask right at the beginning. I want you to think about how many patients are you planning to serve at once? Because that has a lot to do with the space planning for how we put things together. I know some people have thought, oh, I need a station for each of my pieces of equipment, or I need a station for the different types of testing things I'm going to do. And it turns out you don't need that many stations, if you will, or places. And that for the most part, in a therapy program, you're not going from piece of equipment to piece of equipment to piece of equipment. What you're doing is uh, some pieces of equipment you have to go to and use in place, but in many instances, what you are going to be doing is bringing some equipment to an area where you're working with your patient sitting across from them. And I'm going to show you lots of examples of that. Will you be working with vision therapists, or is it just you or maybe one other doc in your practice? Again, all of this has a lot to do with building the space and the plan and that type of thing. So, considerations not for this presentation would be who are the right kinds of people to be vision therapists? I've always thought if you find people with empathy and good communication skills, you can pretty much train the rest. I found quite a few that were either former patients or parents of my patients. And I always looked at each one. Are you a potential vision therapist for me? So keep that kind of thing in mind. I was very successful with retired teachers or people who had first gone down either occupational or physical therapy paths. Some maybe had a physical problem because they were manipulating people that were larger than them or helping them get up and get down and just didn't feel like doing some of that heavy lifting anymore. And a side question really is how do you train your therapists? And I do have a plan or a thought. We have some ideas on that. Again, that's beyond the consideration for what we're going to do here. So, my early experiences, many of you know, I grew up in a my father was an optometrist, my grandfather was an optician. My father had his office in the house that I grew up in, but he really didn't do VT. He had a couple of devices that people came in and did some binocular training procedures on those devices, but his therapy didn't really resemble what we're teaching, what we're showing you, and was more equipment intensive. It helped a number of people, but that was not the kind of program that we all are working with today. So, in the summer of 1978, I went to optometry school from 75 to 79. That was the summer between third and fourth year. Went out to California. It was the furthest I'd ever traveled from home and visited the offices of Dr. Don Getz and Gary Edding. I'd gone with a classmate, and we we both were taking a look at the practice. Don was an amazing, Stuart Rothman was the classmate who went with me. Don was an absolutely amazing host. I had had my plan going in a completely different direction, and this was just an opportunity during the break in the summer between third and fourth year. Actually went out to the West Coast to look at public health schools. Um, but it was the experience looking at Don and Gary's practice and their hosting that blew up a number of myths about VT. And I knew what I was going to do for the rest of my life after that visit. So we walked into their practice. They were seeing between 180 and up to 200 patients a week. And their model was they were seeing their patients twice a week. So just imagine 400 VT patient visits. That did not include VT evaluations, yearly exams, the progress exams, those types of things. 400 or 380 or so to 400 visits a week coming through that practice. What did the physical plant look like? Well, basically, they had large open spaces in one very large room, but they had these counters that jutted out into the room. Two, or I think they actually had three of them. And you'll see that we copied this when we had an opportunity at Southern College of Optometry to redo the VT room. But I want you to know that idea came not to me. I mean, I saw it. It was already executed in the office of Don Getz and Gary Edding out in California. So the idea was that at any point in these counters, you could have a therapist sitting on one side, patient and a parent or a home helper on the other side, and they could work across this counter. And that was really a beautiful idea rather than having things pushed against a wall, because you could look right back up and look at their eyes while you were working with them. Now, they also had a dark room for projection types of things, projected vectograms. They had a beautiful stereo projector that they could project out, wear Polaroid glasses, and other types of things that required light control. Doesn't mean pitch black, but a variable rheostat on incandescent lights. So I thought I'd start this by showing you the office that I had in the Baltimore metropolitan area before I left to go to Southern College of Optometry. So I was in practice in Baltimore from about January of 1982 until September of 2010 when I moved to the Memphis area. And yes, we called the practice the Baltimore Vision Fitness Center, and we were Suite 300 in an office building. Okay. So I wish these pictures were better. I'm not sure what camera I took these with. There's grainy, and I actually think they might have been slides that were then converted to pictures. But this is the end of a hallway looking into my VT room. And what I wanted to show you here, this is, we just converted, these were above here are some IKEA cabinets. This is a large chalkboard, but it had this chalkboard surface on a metallic thing because magnets would stick to it. And it was a very nice thing that it could do that. I figured out how to put a hinge across the top and these little brackets so that it could be at the appropriate angle pulled off from the wall to match the suggestions of Darrell Boyd Harmon in terms of writing on the board and the different postures and that type of thing. The chalkboard should be tilted in that way. You can see below here on the ground, this was one of the walking rails that I had. It was a single solid piece that was built not in parts. Um, this was called the fitter. You could stand on it. It tipped side to side, and the top board slid side to side in that way. But and this board on the side, it looks like a frame board. In fact, it was exactly the kind of slack board that we did use in a dispensary, and we had different things there. But all the frames that we used, the glasses that we used in therapy were pre-made, were put right there. So pairs of glasses, actually more than pair, they're usually four, 5 base up, 5 base down, 5 base right, 5 base left, two different sizes, the plus minus, +1 -1, +1 -1, +3 -3 in the pair. Lots of those were just made right there so they could easily just be grabbed and put directly onto the patient. They could swap them easily. So rather than constantly having to go to trial lens sets or that type of thing, a lot of these were just made and available. The Realizer station was here, so when we were doing testing, we would just sit down and do that at this station here. My office was off a door all the way on the left here. Teresa, who worked for me for many years, both in the practice through Babo and helped with OEP once we had merged, her door to her office was there. Second exam room here. And if we go over here, this is a small special testing room, and you'll see that in some of the pictures. But I just wanted to give you an idea. This tabletop was from IKEA. It was adjustable. We found a setting we liked and pretty much just left it there. So this is taking a step forward into this room, turning and looking to the right. This is showing two more work areas, and that's Miss Liz, just an incredible, wonderful therapist who worked for me for many years. So again, you see the IKEA cabinets. These are all full of different things. When we made the shift to this office, my therapist wanted a clean look, at least in this open space, and that's what we did. So again, you have Liz at her workstation. This stool would be for a patient. And when we brought the parent back at the end of therapy, we had a chair here for the parent. We did not have the parents in the room for most of the therapy. There's yet another workstation right here. Um, so a patient, therapist, etc., and a little table right there. These are also IKEA cabinets. Well, I guess for our people from Scandinavia, I should say IKEA. But you'll see some of this other equipment. There are some pieces of equipment either on the wall or on these tabletops, but for the most part, we would get things, bring them to the work area here, and work directly across from our patients. This is another look at the second work area. We had some room dividers, and I had a staff person who had an office back in here. This was a large custom-made rotator, our Labarge trainer. This was one of the original light boards, Wayne Sakatic fixator. It only had 16 buttons around in a circle, but it had a near far attachment and a balance board attachment with it as well. So this is a little better look at that. Yes, this is an old umbrella stand. I think you can see there. It just worked very nice to keep all kinds of things ready to grab, the bunting stick, a fish net with the net tucked, taken out. We used a lot of these different kinds of things here. Again, this was the rotator. I think we're going to get a close-up of this. Initially, we had lots and lots of pre-printed papers and targets and charts, and it was just nice to have it out. You could go there, pull what you needed, and just hand it to the patient or the parent. Um, Again, looking back at Miss Liz's area, this, by the way, I think we'll get a close-up of it. This was a parts organizer from a hardware store, and it's what we used for the lenses to organize all of the loose lenses for monocular accommodative rock. Here's a little Berneloscope in the back. This was the movable forest, different kinds of things. These were our mascots, a teddy bear wearing an eye patch, but we don't do no patches anymore. Here was the umbrella stand. This was the organizer. Um, this is the little case with all the lenses. You pull out a drawer, it was organized by power. This was the small special testing room I had for many years. This is actually electrodiagnostic. This is a VEP setup. This was the stimulator. This was the Econotrack, which I had very early on. And just around, if you step in the room and look back, this was a visual fields unit that I had. I actually liked it much better than the Humphreys. It was the Dicon unit, had much better software in the beginning. And then you get a look at my dark room. We had this room was specifically for things that needed light control. You had a stereo projector here, an overhead projector. We had a bunch of extra equipment because we had just brought equipment back from a rehab center that was itself getting a renovation. So we had to pull the stuff back in. But a lot of things that were there and ready. You have a vectogram stand that you could rear light. Um, Here was the vectogram stand from the other. This is the Brock stereo motivator projecting exactly opposite here onto a big white wall. And I don't have a good separate picture, but this wall, if I go back, this is the overhead projector. And it's projecting towards this entire wall was painted with the silver metallic paint. So you could project to the entire wall. It was not a pull down screen or material. We painted it. This, by the way, is the laser spec. It was a biofeedback device for accommodation. So, many of you know I shifted over to Southern College of Optometry. They made me a wonderful offer I couldn't refuse, and I'm a very happy man that I took the offer and spent the next almost 13 years at Southern College of Optometry. So they have a water event. And we all looked at it as an opportunity for change. I think what happened was a late Friday night, there was a major water pipe that burst the supply from one side, and it basically took out the entire lower floor. The middle floor where the water was rushing in, I mean, it didn't fill it like you needed divers, but there was enough water. By the time they discovered it, I think either late Sunday or early Monday, um, it was pretty much a disaster area and had to be closed. Even on that middle floor where the water was first coming out, not draining down but coming out. Even that floor, they had to cut out. All the carpet had to go, and they had to cut out probably the lowest 3 feet of the sheetrock, and it all had to be replaced and dried out. And then the lower floor, which had the VT area, was hit very, very hard as well. Um, so, oh, that picture should have been one earlier. Anyway, this is before so we'd emptied out all pretty much the equipment, and you can see here the carpeting had been torn up. I wanted to show you some of the concepts that we didn't like, um, and that we'd inherited when I came to SCO. This is the way it was, where we're in the main VT room, and really what you had were these two layers of shelving. The bottom was at desk height, and you just had equipment shoved up against the wall and more stuff stored above. And you can see, of course, the Marsden Ball hung and not taken down yet, and or repositioned, and yeah, we ended up jacking up the Marsden Ball and replacing everything else, leaving the Marsden Ball. No, it's fine. Dumb joke. Anyway, and you can see that the projector attached to the ceiling made it through the event okay. This is more in that space. We had a pull down screen over here. Eventually, it was relocated, but this was the old space. Um, Students would come and deposit their bags back in here, and there was storage. It was a lot of really wasted space. This was where the doctors sat behind who were supervising VT. We just had this shelf thing. Not sure why, but this was divided, this space and this space. So you had to go out and around to get through. There were four exam rooms and then the VT space that was here. And essentially, at about that time, uh, Mark Taub came to me and said, "You've designed space. Go to it. Design a new space for us." So when people are coming to me and saying, "Please help me with the design of the space," they usually just give me some numbers. Oh, it's 8 by 10. It's 12 by this. It's 14 by. It's two rooms. That's all. Tell me what to do. Um, and I think where you really should start is go to the blueprint of the space that you're in. So this was the original blueprint from the space that was there. Actually, I had already done some drawing and etched in this. Gee, I'd like those counters that came out. You can see I used a little whiteout on this. This originally was, too deep. I wanted to make this so the entry into this exam room was this way. I thought that space with the storage and the could be used better. I was going to do a counter for special testing, readalizer in here, some other things like this. But also it could be used as a quiet space for therapy when we needed it. Imagine somebody on the spectrum or that type of thing. You can see I said, let's do a blackboard here. Let's do this. I was originally thinking of this as a dark projection area and keeping the exam room here. Um, so first I start with sketches and everything in this kind of sketch. So get your blueprint for the space you're looking at, blow it up. I mean, really blow it up so you can begin to draw and play and see, does this make any sense at all? And usually the next level of play is blow each space up, make it large. Now, I'll just give you an example. This was another space that I was asked to develop for an off-site VT area. And this disc, well, what is that? That's where the Marsden ball would be. And when we do some Marsden ball procedures, we want to throw the ball in a great big giant circle one way, the other way, and just do it this way. And this is the walking rail. So I know I can't have any other things in that space, but this is usually how I'll start. Where is the Marsden ball going to go? I want to be able to walk on the walking rail up and back to where the ball is. Um, and I cut to scale stools, tables. Here you can see I put VTS4. This was going to be the floor rotator, stereoscope, vectogram stand. This would be a 15-inch deep counter. I wanted the end cut off so it wasn't a sharp point. Somebody might hurt themselves. This was a passageway into an exam room. Um, and this was, again, a remote VT site. This was a light, just their sign, what it would look like, and that kind of thing. So get your plans, uh, blow it up, make three or four of them, and then you can begin to just work on it, draw, play, have fun. When you think you've really got it, oh, this was the whiteboard that was going to go there, and I forget what the label was for what would go here. I think this was another computer type thing. But Yeah. Um, cut some things to scale, move them around, and see if your ideas work. Okay. So this was the VT space being torn apart. All of that shelving and stuff on the walls being taken down. This was the doctor station being torn apart. This is the new wall after they'd removed the storage that was back there so that we could actually build in a whole new room here. And they took out this whole divider thing so that we had one wide open thing up in the front. Um, More look at the big wide open space. So here they are now. This is with some of the cabinets in. You'll notice the little stickies. We had moved our VT into a temporary space. I had labeled every counter, every storage area with a number, letter, and the boxes for what would go in there were all being sorted in the alternate space. Here was the projector. They were mounting this screen. You'll see there's a little oops moment later that they didn't realize. Um, yeah, here's the oops moment. This thing pushes this down, and every time it came down, it hit in front of, it hit this little thing. So I had to have them move it out to here. But what you had was behind this screen, there's a regular whiteboard. So when we did board tack, ready, set, there's a whiteboard. The thing would project. They could go and draw directly on the board where they should. When we wanted to use these projector then for either stereo or other types of things, then we had this screen that could pull down. In a physical place that has limited amount of wall space, I find many people design these wonderful offices and then they have too many pieces of equipment or things that really should go on walls and they end up shortchanging themselves because of the way they've designed things. So um, I'm very much in favor of the screen that can come down in front of a board so that you could write on it. But when you project, you want it to be really, really clean. Okay. So this is the building VT area. Again, counter. So you could have some equipment against the wall, but primarily these long, thin tabletop things that come out into the room. So, and this was very much like the Don Getz Gary Edding physical setup like we had. We did find that this middle, I knew people were going to sit on this, so we needed the middle support thing put in. all the way to the right end of this, there was uh, a chalkboard type surface, except that people involved didn't want chalk dust. So this was a special surface that could use these um, marker types that you did get a feel from when you used it. Um, but it wiped off and there was no chalk dust. So that was a nice thing. But you'll notice it was not mounted the way I had asked. I had wanted the piano hinge across the top with the support so it could be pulled out to the proper 12 to 15 degree tilt when being written on. And if you fold it, then it would be able to go back when not in use. Um, this is now looking from those counters back. We're actually functioning at this point. So we had a single long area up to 4 people, computers. This computer in the back was our communication system with upstairs. Um, we have multiple Marsden balls that are hung there. And this was the new room that we recovered from the other thing. By the way, you can see the Polaroid projected screen. We bought material in this instance. It was stretched on a very large frame and placed up. And you can see a really clean approach to all these built-in cabinets above here. I go backwards, all the built-in cabinets on the opposite side. Uh, so after we first moved in and things were put in where I had all the little stickies, there was a lot of, okay, where's, and then look, 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 look. Very soon after we got a sense of what was what. Here, by the way, is where we could store the walking rail when not in use. It could be slid out into the space, used, and then slid back as we went. Now, here in this picture, you can see that there's this very tall gray area. That's with um, uh, the Polaroid reflecting material stretched. But in the beginning, we didn't really know, okay, how big should the screen be? And I know some people ask me, well, how big is the screen? I was like, well, I don't know the optics of your overhead projector. This is a standard overhead projector. This is not something you need to buy from an optometry place or an optical supply. The standard overhead projectors are not very expensive. But based on the lens that's here, because this is just a flat front surface mirror, you have the light that projects up through here, and then out. Um, uh, I don't know what the size is as it's going to go here. It's certainly great to have the screen be bigger than that. So this was a test. We put on, this is the spirangle, and then we could measure above, below, either side and make sure we got the proper size. This is that dark room after it was all finally set up. So here's the kinds of things we had there. We had some of our single oblique mirror stereoscope, the aperture rules, the TBI trans. Um, sorry, the um, I'll come back to it. It'll come to me. Stereoscope, 2 different vectogram holders, the movable forest over here. Um, and then you can see 2 of the stand-up gyroscopes off to the left side. This was the large screen after we figured it out, got it, and got it put together. It was our workers. We have an incredible staff at SCO that helps build things, make things. I just gave them the plan, gave them material, and there's the material all hung. This was in that little room where to the left, you don't have it in the picture, is a tiny counter with the Readalizer on it. These are 2 of the Bonovi things that replaced the saccadic fixator. Never really worked all that well. Good machine work, good, had a lot of potential. We gave them lots of feedback as to possible updates, changes, things that should be fixed in the software, and we never heard anything. But this room worked as in a wonderful space where you go to do the VT evals. Come in there, close the door, away from all the noise and the people, and you could actually do some nice testing in that space. And then we had a technology room, and the last room in this thing. So you can see here, this is a SanitVision integrator on this side. This is the Vivid Vision setup over here. We had just enough space to use that way. The counter to the left was VTS4. The right eye was on this counter looking back. So we just called it the tech room. And I just want to, I think we'll stop the share so you'll get just fully me at this point. Um, Thank you. I hope you find this helpful in terms of helping you with the thought process of the steps from getting your plan, putting it down. How many patients are you going to see? How many therapists? How many of those workstations do you need? Making sure you have a dark room that's big enough so that you can put the things in there that you're going to want to have. And then think of the big items you're either going to have from the beginning, like the VTS4, like the SanitVision integrator, like something like either Vivid Vision or some other virtual reality setup kind of thing like that. Because every one of those is going to require a different amount of space and that type of thing. So after you've gone through all that and you want some input, please feel free to send me 2 or 3 competing plans for the space you're going to use. Then we can do a little conference call and I can give you my suggestions and recommendations why this plan is a little better, but this from this idea I think might even work better in there. So I hope you find this helpful. And there you go.